Welcome to another episode of Dimension of the Weird. In the last episode, I told you about a mysterious flash of light in the night sky, followed by an eerie metallic grinding noise. Then, there was a missing security footage for the exact time I had witnessed those enigmatic events. Please look at that episode if you haven't yet. It kind of sets the pace for this one. It turns out there was more high strangeness that night here in Saginaw, Michigan. My friend, Barry Gillalberg, lives a couple of miles from me on Stroby Road, and his house, I am guessing, was built in the 1920s. The backyard is fenced in, which makes this story even stranger. The events I witnessed took place about 2 a.m. to 2:10 a.m. At that time, Gil was wakened by noises in his backyard. The grass in his yard is lush and green, but the sounds he heard suggested something quite different. He heard what sounded like people shuffling their feet along in dried grass. Well, Gil lit a cigarette and proceeded through his dark kitchen, whose window looks out over his back lawn. He was mystified to see nothing, that he could still hear the eerie shuffling of feet. And Gil has lived there a long time and claims he has never heard the sound before. So then how does this tie in with the phenomenon I witnessed that same night? Perhaps it doesn't. Still, it's very odd that these events happened the same night at the same time, coupled with the missing security footage. Now I'm wondering if there might be another explanation for the ghostly sounds, as they were very reminiscent of an event that happened to me many years ago now when I was living with my dad and mom up in Oscoda, Michigan. And I'd refer you to a video I did called A Weird Night on Cedar Lake Road, and I'll put a link to it in the description. But briefly, what happened was it was a summer night, very hot, warm, and humid. And my parents' house was on a hill that sloped down to a railroad track in a gully. And right beyond the railroad track was Van Etten Lake. Well, this particular night, my brother, Frank, and his wife, Jean, and their kids, Sherry and Tammy, were visiting us. And they were sleeping in the back bedroom of the house, which overlooked the backyard and the railroad track and the lake. Well, I slept upstairs. My bedroom was upstairs, and it was always incredibly hot in the summertime. And as I laid there trying to sleep, and couldn't because of the heat, I heard the strangest noises in the backyard. It sounded like things being dragged across the yard, and you could hear the muffled voices of people. And as I looked out my upstairs window down towards the railroad tracks, I could see blue and green lights in a hazy fog, because the humidity was just hanging in the air that night. Well, no, I saw nothing though. I couldn't see anybody in the backyard. All I could hear were the sounds, and occasionally it sounded like chains being dragged across the backyard. But there was nobody there. And those weird lights were definitely out of place. The next morning, when we got up, in the sand of the driveway, you could see ridges where something had been dragged across, and that there had been nobody there that I could see. Now, what I didn't know at the time, and I didn't find out 2 years later, is that in that backyard was a late woodland village, Indian village site. And as I excavated that site, there were some peculiar artifacts that were found. And again, I'd refer you to another video I did on the mysterious Oscoda image stone. Did the weird sounds of that night have any connection with the spirits of the people who had dwelt there as many as 15 to 1600 years prior to my family living there? With the weirdness of some of the artifacts that I found, I believe they did. Now, bringing this back to Gil's yard, I wonder if test excavations were done there. What might be found? Could there have been an Indian encampment there? Certainly. Saginaw, what is Saginaw now, was heavily occupied over thousands of years with Native American peoples. And of course, who knows? There could be an historic period cemetery there that was forgotten. And then again, maybe there's nothing. But you have to admit that what I witnessed that night, with the flash in the sky and the metallic sounds, coupled with that missing security video from the store just down the road from me, and what Gil heard in his yard, certainly sounds like it comes from the dimension of the weird. Thank you for coming by. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please subscribe and click that bell icon for updates of future videos here on my favorite channel, the Dennis Morrison channel. Until then, have a weird time. God bless.